Very sadly, I have been afflicted with restless knitting syndrome. Hello my lovelies, welcome to my little cottage by the sea, the place where I love to stitch and craft my way to a vintage inspired and sustainable lifestyle. I have a cup of tea, I have a basket of knitting, and I'm looking forward to sharing all my knitting chatter with you today. It's been an absolute age since I did any kind of content about knitting here on my channel. So I thought a knitting catch-up was well overdue. So today I'm going to be updating you, sharing, chit-chatting with you about all the things that I have been knitting and am knitting and dream about knitting. One of the reasons this knitting catch-up is so overdue is that I really seriously completely lost my knitting mojo, and I've actually only got a couple of things that I finished to show you, although there are a few works in progress and quite a lot of plans zooming around my little head. Everything I started knitting I unravelled, frogged back, because either I'd made loads of silly mistakes, or I didn't actually like the thing in the end that I was knitting, or the wool wasn't suitable for that thing, and so on and so forth. So that is why I actually only have two finished things, and the first of which you can see on Mildred over here. It's one of my Sinead ballet wrap cardigans in a blush pink, and I actually did knit this way back in December going into January, and I meant to share it in the video that I did then, which is my last knitting video, but I somehow didn't. I think I showed it and then I didn't actually talk about it. But this is my own pattern that's based off of a vintage pattern that I graded up very simply, because I'm not the most accomplished knitter or grader of knitting patterns even. Something I really want to get better at. But I really love the Sinead ballet wrap cardigan. It's really easy to wear. It's a really good sort of confident beginner starting project, and it just sort of goes in any style wardrobe. I have a sort of a vintage inspired bias to my handmade wardrobe, but it would look great with just jeans, and it's quite fitted, so it does give you that quite chic vintagey 1950s ballerina look, if that's the look that you enjoy. I like to style mine up with just wide leg trousers or a pencil skirt, or even just with a circle skirt and maybe a camisole underneath, and style it up like a blouse, but also looks really good over Vampire's Wife style dresses or vintage 1940s dresses, inspired dresses. So it's a real wardrobe hero, and I think this is the third or fourth that I've actually knitted since developing the pattern, and it's a real winner as far as I'm concerned. Final finished make, I mean ridiculous, is this Chartreuse 1940s style knitted blouse, and I was really inspired to knit this because there's a lady that I follow on Instagram called Petite Madeline, I'm not entirely sure how you say her name. She's ever so stylish, and she hand dyes and knits things. She also sews as well, and she always uses this really lovely Chartreuse wool and has these really beautiful knitted pieces. This is a bit of an experiment. I was inspired by her, and I used this colourway which I think is called Olive and is by Country Classics. I think Serdar Country Classics, not sure. It's a really nice wool for an economy wool, and it's quite pleasant to knit and feels quite nice. It knits up seemingly more expensive than it actually is. So I kind of made up this pattern based off of a couple of Susan Crawford patterns, and it's got little puff sleeves and it's got this sort of garter stitch yoke detail. It has buttons on the back. These were the only buttons I had to hand. I'd actually really like to find some nice vintage buttons to replace these with, to go with the colour. And I even did the little Cornish pasty croissant shoulder pads, made those as well. And I really love it, but I do think that it's a bit short in the body, just ever so slightly. So I do need to wear it with quite high-waisted things, which is fine because that's my preference. And if I were to try and knit this again, I just absolutely couldn't, because my notes while I was developing this were so blinking horrendous that I need a PhD in gobbledygook to be able to decipher them. So I wanted to actually develop this pattern on and create something even better than this for my wardrobe, but I'm not sure that I can now because of aforementioned gobbledygook. But I'm really happy with this blouse, and I think even though it is a bit short in the body, it would look really good over a tea dress, a Bella tea dress. And actually I've got one in this fabric, which is a 1930s Liberty fabric called Honeymoon. It's my favourite print of all time, and actually would look really lovely because that dress has got a little collar, and it doesn't matter then if the jumper's a little bit short. But I'm going to enjoy wearing this over autumn and winter here in what potentially could be a rather chilly Blighty. As I said, I've had this restless knitting syndrome, which has meant I started so many different projects and then ended up unravelling them or just leaving them to one side, and I just really could not get my knitting mojo back. So in these dire circumstances, because I'm normally click-clack-teeing away the entire way through the year, what I like to do is choose something that is sort of like a palette cleanser, something that's quite simple, quite straightforward, soothing, satisfying. And the thing that I reached for was another of my Sinead cardigans, and this one is in a dusky vintage pink, a more kind of deeper rosy pink. It's sort of finished, nearly finished. I've just got to do the edging and sew up the side seams, and I've done the ties. This is just a very cheap synthetic wool, actually, not the best quality, but I really loved the colour, and actually moving forward I probably wouldn't knit in something like this, but I was so fed up of buying wool and knitting it into things and then undoing the things. I just fell in love with the colour and I just went with it. But actually I'm going to look out for this colour in a slightly nicer yarn and knit another of these, but a long sleeve version. And again, I'll be styling this up with wide leg trousers over maybe more blouse on sleeves. As this is a short sleeve, you still get the feature of your sleeves, which is very nice, but keeps your torso warm in chilly sewing rooms like mine. So my next UFO is the Wonderella cardigan by Tasha Could Make That. I think I've got that right. And I saw this cardigan and just thought it was amazing, and I just bought it immediately. I ordered the yarn from Wool Warehouse. I can't remember what yarn this is, and I couldn't find the bands for it. If I can rootle tootle the info out, I'll pop that in the description box below, along with all the other stuff that I mentioned, should you want to find out more about any of it. I really have enjoyed knitting this, and I don't really know why I stopped knitting it, but basically it's kind of all looking like this. Here's the sleeve, so I'm on one of the sleeves. I've knitted the body. I have these wonderful little stitch markers, throwing the wool all over the room. Lovely little stitch markers, and this feels really nice. I really like this adding, hold on 1 minute, I really like adding, where's that, oh, disastrous raining balls. I really like this idea of mixing the, and I think this is the silk mohair from Drops, and I think this is a Drops one as well. I cannot remember. Anyway, love the effect this has, very soft and luxurious feeling. And I'm just going to wear this as a blouse as well. It's got a nice little keyhole, and I think will look great with my vintage inspired wardrobe. And I am trying to really stick to a colour palette when I'm either sewing or knitting, and my colour palette is black, pinks, greens and creams with sort of metallic-y, pearly sort of textures, and that way I kind of end up with everything that goes with everything. So I am making sure that I knit things in those colourways, and I think this will be lovely when it's done. And actually, because I really like this, maybe it's a good idea to sort of find that dusky rose colour and knit a fluffy Sinead. Who knows? Let me know what you think. This next unfinished project that's been started and then left is one that I've actually caused a bit of a hoo-ha about. So I am knitting this vintage 1980s Aran cardigan. It's a pattern I found in a charity shop, and it really reminded me of cardigans that Sophia and the Golden Girls wear, so had to knit it. And I put aside a couple of balls of this. This is a yarn called Grace, can't remember who it's by, King Cole maybe, Grace, in the colourway Oyster. So it's coming up quite cream, but it's got this lovely sort of little tone of pink in it. It's really pretty, and it's hazy and soft and lovely. And I kind of knitted the back up to the point where the Aran starts to happen, and I only bought 2 balls home and then reserved the others. But obviously this was in December last year, and they're probably now not there because I've left it so long. I really should have just gone and got the others from my lovely Jacobs, who I work with a lot and who are some of my favourite people in the whole wide world. So here's a bit of a question, a bit of advice. What do you think? So they still do this colourway and stock this, but it will be a different dye lot. So I've got the rest of this ball, which will probably do the back because it goes a long way, and I've got another ball. And what I was thinking was I would knit the back in this, and then I'd buy the new dye lot for the fronts and the sleeves, and I'd do all the borders in this dye lot, and then I'd do the sleeves and the body of the sleeves and the main body of the left and front in the new dye lot. And that way, if there's a slight difference in tone, it would sort of blend in, rather than kind of starting a new one halfway and having like a little bit of a blocky of one dye lot and a block of another dye lot. I don't know if any of this makes sense, but what do you think? Should I do that, or should I just not knit this? Because I really, really do want to finish this cardigan. I'm really excited about it, a little bit daunted about all the Aran because it's slightly new to me, but this was really enjoyable knitting this, and I just really would love to finish it, and that's the only solution that I can come up with. So do let me know what you think in the comments, because your advice is always really appreciated. My last currently on the needles project is this back piece for Susan Crawford 1950s pullover, and I am absolutely loving this. So actually this is the right side. It's got this lovely fancy rib texture, and it's simply a front and a back with a very deep V and these sort of grown on sleeves. So I thought will look great over Vampire's Wife dresses. Now I had this wool, it's Drops Nord, love the colour, vintagey rose, perfect. And it's really beautifully soft. What I would say is that this wool on metal needles is really slippy. So I did drop a few stitches, and this wool really just kind of ladders. It's quite, I found it quite difficult to rescue. I have actually made one boo-boo in this, so I'm going to need to rectify it. Actually, you can't see it too much from the right side, but it's very noticeable on the wrong side. But I'm so enjoying knitting this, and I'm really looking forward to getting it finished. I've been working on it first thing in the morning, getting up a little bit earlier and making my morning cup of tea and putting on the Squid School lectures, history of knitting lectures, and watching some of one of them and knitting on this. And it's sort of like my meditation as I get into the busyness of the day before I have this lovely moment. And I am just really enjoying this, and it's really helped me get my love of knitting, my passion back. So with that in mind, I have a few things to show you, new things in to show you, and a few knitting plans that I'm really excited about. I only have a couple of new things, and these are my really exciting things. I'm not going to tell you what they're for. They're for something super special, a free thing that will be arriving on my website in October, and I bought them specifically for that project. Really love a pom-pom, but that will be there at some point. And in the meantime, I just like doing this. I found this book in a charity shop, Lace and Eyelet Stitches, edited by Erica Knight. One of the things that I feel quite unconfident about is actually knitting lace, and I thought this is such a beautiful book. Actually, it's got some really lovely inspiration pictures and just lots and lots of different lace knitting, and I thought what would be really good to build confidence rather than attack a project and try to get to grips with lace knitting, eyelet knitting, I would just work through some of the little swatches using up scrap yarns, and then I've got a little reference library and I can experiment a little bit and really get my head round the concept of lace stitches, and that way I'm doing something quite productive and I'm developing my skills on, developing confidence, and then I can take on some of the projects that I'd really like to do, because I really love a lot of lace knitting but feel too daunted to really get on with it. And when I've tried to do it, I've muffed it up and just had to stop. But look how pretty this is here. It's like literally my colour palette in a page. Might have to photocopy that and put it on a mood board somewhere. But there are 250 basically of these to try, and I'm just going to work my way through a few. Some of the pages are coming out. It's a bit of a manky book, but I'm really pleased I found that. I think it was about £1, and I'm very happy to add it to my knitting bookshelf and archive of reference books. This next thing was a real gem to find. I was absolutely thrilled. Knitting for All Illustrated is from the 30s. I got it from Snooper's Paradise in Brighton. It was only £5, and it was with the equivalent sewing book, and I bought that as well on my birthday, so a real treat. But this book is full of gorgeousness, so I'm going to interrupt this broadcast and just show you more of a sneak peek of just the wonderful stuff that is held within the pages of this vintage treasure. As always, you get these really lovely end papers, and the book is just full of projects for your family and for yourself, and there's some really beautiful jumpers for evening wear and these fabulous illustrations. So it's sort of like a magazine that takes you through a few things that you need for your wardrobe. So an evening jacket, an evening jumper, some lingerie, a bed jacket, and so on, and then accessories. There's also this knitted skirt. Look at these lovely gals, vintage gals. How great are the shoes? And just filled with beautiful illustrations and really lovely photography actually, and you get to see the rooms and houses. There's a black frock. The well-dressed woman always has a little black frock, and then really sweet little lacy jumper. They're having tea and scones, however you say it. The whole book is just filled with delightful things. A fascinating fez, this wonderful three-cornered hat, a turban, and knitteds that go to the head. Just the illustrations are just fabulous in and of themselves, and basically everything you could possibly need. Some handsome stockings, always good to have handsome stockings, but absolutely love this with this house coat, and she's sitting there in her handsome stockings, and she's having a day out in the countryside with her handsome stockings. It's making me feel that I need some handsome stockings in silk or wool. I'm not sure that they would look that handsome. This was particularly lovely, and it's over some gorgeous vintage fabric scarf there tucked in. But really like this idea of a like a deep V, like a pullover that you can wear over a nice blouse with some nice trousers or a skirt. There's just literally gorgeousness on absolutely every single page, and I literally would love to knit my way through all of it. Look at this fabulous fashionable house coat, and I just love all the fonts are used, and here, look, absolutely need vests to keep us warm, and quite interesting there, little baby. So basically everything that you could possibly need in your life for your husband, significant other. Balaclava helmet with adjustable ear flaps. Always really important to be able to adjust your ears, I think. There they are, doing man things like soaring a tree, man things like pointing at something with a pipe, man things holding a bridle and laughing over the stable wall. And yes, pipes very, very important for man things of this era. Another pipe there, and also a pipe there. And yeah, he appears to be sweeping the yard whilst smoking a pipe, whilst conversing. So who said that the boys of the species can't multitask? And there we are with another pipe. Maybe I need a pipe to go with my handsome stockings to sort of do a riff on all of this vintage knitting. Or maybe I'm just taking things a bit too literally. But there's a little peek inside this fabulous book, Knitting for All Illustrated. An absolute treasure. I highly, highly recommend. This leads me on very nicely into some knitting plans that are percolating in my little brain at the moment. And the first thing that I would really love to knit is this three-cornered hat. It's foolish, but it's fun, and that is how I want to feel about all the things that I'm making through autumn and winter. Last year it was all a bit of a depressing season, and it's my favourite season, but this year I want to have loads of fun. I love that these look like cat ears, and this looks like a really fun little project. I mean, there's lots of projects I would like to do in here. You can look like an owl, alternatively. You can use up remnants, and I think it would be really, really fun to see what this hat looks like, just as a sort of historical exercise. So that is the first thing that's on my knitting plans list. I have this book, Vintage Hollywood Knits, and I don't know if I've shown this to you before. I really love the jumper on Joan Crawford on the front there. That one might have to happen. But the particular one that I would like to knit, which now I cannot find. This was written by Bill Gibb, who was a famous English fashion designer. His clothes are very coveted, and he did this incredible book. So the one that I would like to knit is this Tyrolean Austrian style cardigan here on Claudette Colbert, and I've always wanted one, and I know that Knitting for Victory, I think, is the lady who, she's just published a really beautiful book. I don't have it yet, it's on my to get list, but I thought I would give this a go. This is to be knitted in a, they've used a Rowan Pure Wool double knit, but I just want to knit it in a cream with accents of pink and green maybe, or black even, who knows. And I don't know if these patterns are any good. If you've knitted this, do let me know, because I'd love to know how it goes. But that's one that will happen. I haven't ordered any wool for this or any of my other projects that I want to knit, but I'm just working out some firm plans that are going to go with what I already have in my wardrobe. There almost isn't an item that I want to knit in this brilliant book, the Stitching Time Volume 2 by the wonderful Susan Crawford, who just seems to put so much beauty out into this world. There's one particular item in here that I'd really like to knit, although it does feel a little bit beyond my skills at the moment, but it's this Ladies Ripple sweater. It's in the 1940s section, but it looks very 1930s to me. So I thought that would be really lovely in my chosen colourway. Maybe something that I would knit after the new year and be knitting ready for spring. Another pattern that I bought with the idea of knitting this for more of a springtime is the Susie Bow sweater by the wonderful Subversive Femme. I love what she makes, both sewn and all her knitting patterns, and she's got a wonderful archive of free knitting patterns, and she does focus on curvier and larger size, which is just brilliant. This is a vintage pattern that she has graded up and done all the hard work, all the math for us, which is very lovely. I have printed it out, and for some reason it's in black and white. I for some reason can't print things out in colour. It's far too complicated for me to do, but I don't know what colourway I'm doing this. I'm kind of thinking black with white, or cream with black, but then I liked shocking pink with cream, and then I liked vintage dusky rose with pale pink, and it just goes on. And then I even have this idea that you could knit this in a lovely green with a sparkly for a sort of a Christmas, because don't all gifts come with bows. My final knitting project that I want to knit is an absolute impulse buy and whim, but I am so incredibly excited about this one. This is the Love Magic dress by Disco Stitch, and she's a new discovery to me. She came up on my Instagram feed. I don't know why, but I saw this dress and I followed the tag on there, and there are just some beautiful, beautiful versions that just took my breath away. And this has got really fabulous bell sleeves, and you can extend the length of this, so I probably wouldn't do this short version. I'd do more of a knee length version. But actually a knitted dress is really, really practical when it gets so incredibly cold in my cottage. But actually this can be worn and will keep me incredibly toasty while I'm working away on all my projects. So I'm going to do this in a black, and I think I did write this down in here, that I'm going to use Drops Soft Tweed in the colourway Raven. So it's black with flecks of colours. It's really, really pretty, and it's got a little bit of lace knitting and so on these wonderful sleeves. You can do a sort of a smaller bell sleeve or a mahoosive bell sleeve, but I'm hoping to get going on this so that I can wear it in the colder months. I've wanted to knit a dress or skirts or sort of a cord for a really, really long time, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a really enjoyable project. Her stuff reminds me of The Love Witch, which is a brilliant film. Absolutely love it. Gonna have to watch that actually at some point over autumn spooky season, which is the best time of year as far as I'm concerned. So really looking forward to getting that. Just got to work out how much wool I need and get it ordered and get going. I hope you've enjoyed sharing my knitting chatter and update with you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend the time with me here in my little cottage by the sea, talking all things stitch, whether that's sewing or knitting. And if you haven't already subscribed and would like to keep up to date with my sewing and knitting adventures, I'd really love to have you here on a regular basis. I'm looking forward to hearing your comments and your advice, re what I do with the Sophia Golden Girls jumper, and just if you have some recommended yarn brands that you really love using, I would really love to know, because I tend to stick to a couple that I feel sure of, but I don't really know all those brands that are out there. There are so many these days, and it's always good when somebody recommends something, because you know you're onto a winner. I hope that wherever you are, my lovely, you're keeping very safe and very well, and till next time, bye.